Let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever been in a battle that seemed hopeless? In that clip, those were the revolutionaries in the early America. And they're on their way to fight a battle that they don't think they can win. The odds are against them. And I love that scene because all of a sudden he comes out with this flag and they get excited. They are stirred. Their faith is renewed. Maybe you're in a battle right now. Maybe you're fighting something and you just feel like you're beat up. You don't feel like you can continue. You need somebody to come along and just raise your spirits, just like he did with that flag. You need a flag, a banner, to come into your life and raise your spirits and raise your faith. I don't know what you're dealing with. Maybe it's some kind of a disease and cancer, depression, marriage issues, loneliness, whatever it is. You need a banner in your life. Well, we've started a series this last week on the names of God. And the reason that we're doing this is because sometimes our perception of God can get a little blurry. We start to see God differently than He really is. And whenever our vision or our perception of God gets blurry, it's hard to trust Him. We start to doubt. We start to fear. We start to worry. So we started this series called Keeping a 20/20 View of God. And each week of this series, we're going to talk about a different name that God goes by. And the first name we're going to talk about is Jehovah Nissi, which means the Lord is my banner. Isn't that amazing? God is our banner. Just like in that clip where that banner came by and it raised their spirits, it raised their faith. That's what God is supposed to do in you and I. He is our banner. There's a couple things about banners that I want to share with you today. Especially if you're in a battle right now. Pay attention to this. A banner is a place to rally around and be inspired. It represents everything you're fighting for. It's something to give you courage. When you need courage, look to your banner. But the most important thing that a flag or a banner represents is victory. When we landed on the moon so many years ago, what did we do? We planted a flag on the moon, the American flag. Why? To signify that we were the first nation to land on the moon. In battles, when an army would defeat the opposing army, they would take down their flag and they would hoist up their flag, right? Why? What did that signify? It signified victory. Victory. We have defeated the enemy. It was after a great victory in the Old Testament that God revealed Himself as Jehovah Nissi, the Lord my banner. And I want to talk about it. The story goes like this. The Israelites, they had just left Egypt. Many of you know that story. They were slaves in Egypt. And God finally gets them out of Egypt. And they're traveling. Now think about this. They were slaves in Egypt. So they're not fighting people. They don't have chariots. They don't have a lot of armor and weapons and all that kind of stuff. They left Egypt in a hurry. They've got children, women. I mean, this is like a caravan. This is not an army. And on their way out, on their way to the Mount Sinai to meet with God, the Amalekites, decide they're going to attack them. They saw the Israelites as easy prey. The Amalekites were these marauding bands that they would just attack anybody that they could steal from and destroy. And they saw these Israelites, oh, this is it. We're going to take them out. We're going to get everything they have. But watch how God helps his people to win the battle. In Exodus chapter 17, 8 through 15, it says this. While the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill holding the staff of God in my hand. Now, this is that staff that God told Moses, take that staff when you go into Egypt and perform the many miracles that I'm going to have you perform. Okay? This staff represented the power of God. Okay? So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of a nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became so tired he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands, so his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. After the victory, the Lord instructed Moses, write this down on a scroll as a permanent reminder and read it aloud to Joshua. I will erase the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar there and named it Yahweh Nissi, which means the Lord is my banner. The Lord is my banner. God was their banner that day. He was represented by that staff. And every time Moses held it up, the Israelites would have victory. They would win the battle. Just like the Israelites, we're going to face many battles in life. And when we face these battles and things heat up, that's when we need to know. That's when we need to have a clear picture of who God is. We need to know that God is our banner. There are three things that we can learn from this story about having victory in the battles of life. And the first one, the first step to victory is you need to rally around your banner. A banner or flag was always meant to be an inspirational tool. Armies would use it to inspire the troops, to lead the troops. It was used in battle as a rallying point. Usually the flag would be next to the leader, right? And as you're fighting in the battle, you always want to keep your eye on the banner. So you know where the leader is. You know what the army's doing. You're never going to get out ahead of the army. You're never going to fall behind. You're going to stay right close to that banner. And here's the thing. And when the battle starts to, when you start to feel like you're losing the battle, they would always call out, rally to me, rally to me. And you would come and you would rally around the banner. The banner represents all the past victories of the nation. All the past victories. If you look at the passage that we just read, it says that the altar that Moses built was meant to be a reminder to the Israelites. a reminder of what happened. Listen to this again. I'm going to read it real quick. After the victory, the Lord instructed Moses, write this down on a scroll as a permanent reminder and read it aloud to Joshua. I will erase the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Moses built an altar there and named it Yahweh Nissi, which means the Lord is my banner. It was to remind them that God had given them victory in a hopeless battle. Whenever they saw that monument, they were to look at that and go, that's when we defeated that army. We were the underdogs. There was no way we could win. But God was our banner. God was our banner. God wanted them to remember that He was always going to be with them. No matter what they faced, they could remember that God gave them the power to be victorious. When we face battles in life, we need to rally around our flag. We need to rally around our banner, which is God. We need to remember all the times He's already helped us. How many battles has God helped you win? How many battles, how many hopeless battles has He helped you win in your life? You need to remember those. You need to rally around your banner and remember those fights that He has already given you victory over. It doesn't matter what we face because God is bigger. So rally around God, your banner, and remember all the times He's already helped you. And take courage that He will give you victory again. That's the first step to having victory when you're in a battle of life. The second step to victory is to take up your banner and charge the enemy. In the old days when they were fighting in wars, the banner or the flag bearer would often lead the charge. Now, I got to be honest, I think I'd be a little scared to be the guy holding the flag, because if that's all I'm holding, I don't have many weapons, right? But I never understood that, but it makes sense when you realize that the flag was to be that inspiration. Charge. Follow me. Let's go. The Israelites, when they went into battle, they had Moses set up on a hill and pray with his hands raised, holding that staff of God. Moses was praying for the Israelites, asking God to intervene on their behalf. The real enemy of the Israelites wasn't the Amalekites, it was Satan. It was the devil. He was trying to destroy God's people. Who do you think was motivating this army of Amalekites to take advantage of these poor, helpless Israelites? You know how I know that this was a spiritual battle that Moses was fighting? Because every time Moses got tired and started to lower his arms, that symbolized his prayers ending. And when that happened, the Israelites began to lose. Moses was doing spiritual warfare. He was battling the enemy through prayer. He was taking up his banner, which was God, and charging the enemy. And that's exactly what we need to do. Isn't it interesting that the determining factor in that battle wasn't the warriors on the field? It was a little old guy on a hill praying. Our battle is a spiritual battle, and we need to use spiritual weapons. Ephesians 6:12 says this, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." If we're going to have victory, then we have got to pray. I don't mean the kind of prayer where you pray once. And I've preached on this before, but I'm going to preach it again. I mean the kind of prayer where you keep praying until you see victory. Maybe you're faced with an illness today. You need to pray and keep praying until you receive healing, or God tells you to stop praying. Maybe you're faced with a financial battle today, and you need to pray and keep praying until you receive that financial miracle, or God tells you to stop. Don't take prayer lightly. If Moses had taken prayer lightly, then the Israelites would have lost the battle. Like I said, the determining factor of that victory was not the strength of their warriors, the Israelite warriors. It wasn't the number of warriors that they had. The determining factor was a little old guy on a hill praying. Don't take prayer lightly. We have to persevere in prayer if we want to have victory. So if you're in a battle today, take up your banner and do what the Israelites did and charge the enemy. The third step to victory in a battle of life is to wave your banner. In the old days, when they would fight these battles and they carry these flags into battle with them, they would wave the banner when they had achieved victory. Have you ever seen an old movie? And what do they do? They grab the banner, right? Make sure I don't hit anything. And they wave it, right? To signify victory. And that's what we need to do. In the Bible, it teaches us that we're to rely on God for everything and to have faith. To have faith, especially when we pray. Just like the Israelites had faith. You know what is amazing to me is that the Israelites didn't run away from the battle. Think about that for a moment. They knew they were the underdogs. They knew they had women and children and with them, and they knew that they didn't have the same kind of weapons and armor and skill that these Amalekites had. They probably were outnumbered, and yet they went and they charged the enemy. They said, we're going to do it. We're going to take the battle to them. They had faith that God would give them the victory. So when we're in a battle, we need to have faith that God will give us the victory. Listen to what Jesus says about prayer in Mark chapter 11, verse 24. He says, I tell you, you can pray for anything. And if you believe that you have received it, it will be yours. That's the kind of faith we need to have in God. The kind of faith where we are signaling victory even before the battle is over. That means we can't sit in misery and doubt and worry. If we really believe that we're going to be victorious, then why would we worry? No, we need to have a faith that is confident in victory no matter what. We need to take up our banner and we need to begin to wave that banner even before we see the victory, because we know it's coming. God will give us victory. I don't know what battle you're in today. And maybe you're not even in a battle. Maybe you're sitting here, you're like, man, life is good, Pastor. I'm good. But you know what? You're going to go through a battle. You're either in one or you're on your way to get into one. But God is your banner. And if you're going to have victory, then you need to see God as your banner. Don't let the enemy cloud your vision by convincing you that God doesn't care, that he isn't going to do anything about what you're dealing with. He's going to be there for you. And he will give you victory if you will trust him and pray.